with us for the Coffee with the Court. And hey, Judge, and Judge Spiro Cherigatis. That's going to be at 7:30. It'll be Zoom as well, so you'll get a notice from the Bar Association about that, and I encourage you to sign up for that. That's going to be free for lawyers with 12 years of experience or less, and you will get 1 hour of CLE credit. I want to thank Ann Sermon, our executive director. Hey, Ann, with the Mobile Bar Association. She has helped a lot with the logistics of putting this together. Without her, we would be lost. So thanks, Ann, for all of the support and assistance in getting this off the ground.
Thank you.
If you have technical issues, you can't hear or you can't see us, or any sort of troubleshooting issues during this Zoom CLE, please email Ann. You'll have her email address on the notice, or you can call the bar, and their number is 433-9790, and they'll walk you through any technical issues that you may be having. If you have any questions of our presenters as they are speaking on the various topics, please feel free to send us a chat question. And if you'll look right now at the bottom of your screen, there's an icon that says chat. If you'll click on that and just send us a question, or maybe you have a comment about the topics that are being presented, or maybe you have a suggestion or a tip that you've used in your practice that's assisted you during this awkward time in our history. But please use the chat option if you can, and we certainly do want to receive your questions and comments as we move forward. So now I'm going to introduce our speakers. First, we've got Judge Jill Phillips, who is on our circuit court, and she's a graduate of Spring Hill College and the University of Alabama School of Law. She served as an assistant district attorney from 2000 to 2015. She was appointed to the district court bench in 2015 and our circuit court in 2018. She's been a member of our mentoring committee since 2015, a frequent speaker at all of our program, or a number of our programs, and also assists us in the content that we deliver through our committee. And next we have Pete Mackey, who's a graduate of Alabama and the Cumberland School of Law. Pete is with the firm of Burns, Cunningham, and Mackey, and he does civil trial work. He represents plaintiffs in business and consumer tort cases, contracts, construction, employment disputes, and insurance disputes. He's board certified by the civil certified as a civil trial advocate by the National Board of Trial Advocacy, certified mediator, and has an AD rating with Martindale-Hubbell. And Pete also is a longtime member of our mentoring committee, a frequent speaker at our programs, and a contributor to the content that we try to deliver on a regular basis to members of the Mobile Bar Association. So with that, I want to turn it over to Pete for some introductory remarks. Pete, go ahead.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate you running the show here. And Ann, thanks a lot for everything you've done to put it together. And last and certainly not least, thanks to Judge Phillips for gracing us with her time and presence and thoughts. I'll tell you this. I've been on a bunch. I've been on some Zoom depositions. I'm doing a Zoom mediation next week. I've been on a bunch of Zoom meetings. I never really presented. I sort of feel like I'm in my parents' basement pumping out a episode of Wayne's World, but I'll do the best I can here. This idea started about 6 or 7 weeks ago. My wife and I went to a funeral and up at St. Ignatius, and it would have been a big, huge Catholic funeral, but because everything was just starting, we ended up, it was, there was a very quiet visitation. Nobody was really, social distancing had just started. Then came the funeral, and when the funeral was over, it was done. There was no gathering afterwards, no cheese straws, no fried chicken. And as we were driving home, I told my wife, it just felt really incomplete and really weird. And when we got home, I called the priest at my church at All Saints, and told him how I was feeling. And he said, well, Pete, that's the hand we're dealt right now. And I said, well, I appreciate that, Padre, but you're not really moving the needle for me. What do I do to combat this? And he said, well, if you look at the, I'm going to probably model through some stuff here. I'm going to do the best I can. Are y'all seeing a PowerPoint? And Judge, are we seeing the right view?
Yes.
Okay. He said, well, if you look to the Bible or the Quran or the teachings of Buddha or all types of philosophical scholarship, what you will find is a lot of support for the idea of embracing solitude, because solitude is what you have right now. You got all you want and it's free. And that's what we have to do. And it's weird because normally in a time of tragedy, we come together and we embrace each other. And Jim was saying, no, we're going to have to embrace solitude and use deep thought to work your way through it. And it sounded good, but it was a little bit over my head. And and so I went to, coincidentally, I had my first Zoom meeting that afternoon. And it's with it was started by a group that was started by a lawyer in South Florida named John Romano, who's, we all do plaintiff's work, and it's an informal group, and we get together once a year, and we were just having this Zoom meeting, and I really wasn't sure about what the format was, but I knew I wanted to be a part of it because I hadn't seen my friends since, there's about 50 of us since the fall. So I got on the Zoom meeting, and there were about 35 lawyers on it, and what it was a pep rally, and it was a damn good pep rally. John was saying, he was reminding us that we've got clients a lot of whom can't leave the house, and that we ought not be whining about being stuck in the house ourselves when we've got clients that needed our help. And it was pretty uplifting. And and as I looked around the room and heard everybody talking, one of the lawyers asked John, half jokingly, they said, well, John, because John's attitude is, you've heard the adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. John's got a different take on that. He says, if it ain't broke, break it. He is an agent for change. And he's not afraid to try things that other people are afraid of doing. He's very proactive in his law practice. And somebody asked him, like I said, half jokingly, John, are you not afraid of the future? What's going to be going on the next year and a half? And he said, hell yeah, I'm scared. But let me tell you something. If I spend an hour this afternoon worrying about it, the only thing that's going to change is the time of day. He said, I wake up every morning and I tell myself to embrace uncertainty because that's all I can do. It's the only proactive thing I can do. And when I heard that use of that word embrace again, it got me thinking. And he went on to say that he ends the day every day calling a couple of clients and telling them that he's thinking about them, that he's working on their case. It may be an old client. And I thought, that's a really good thing. So I did that very evening. I think it was March 8th, March 15th, one of those. And I called an old client, I called a regular client, and my old client was so nice. I could hear her. She goes to her church. She's retired. She worked up until this. She worked at her church as a volunteer every single day. And that was her world. And she said, at the end of it, she said, Pete, I really thank you for calling me. That made me feel so good. And I said, well, you know what? Hearing you say that makes me feel really good. And that made me, I hung up the phone and I immediately thought of a course that at church in this group I'm in, led by Judge Calloway. Last fall, we looked at the science of well-being. It's a series. It's the most popular course at Yale University, put on by a psychology professor. And what she talks about in that course is things that make you happy and things that don't make you happy, and how to be happy. And it sounds a little banal, really, but it's really an interesting course, and there's a lot of psychological underpinning to it. And it's now free. And we're going to send these. Don't worry about trying to replicate or take a picture of the screen. We're going to send this out to you. But one of the things that she talks about is how gratitude is giving out gratitude is a way to make yourself feel better. So you give away being happy. You give away happiness to make yourself happy. It sounds a little crunchy, but there is a lot of truth to it. And I'll tell you a little story. She doesn't know I'm fixing to tell this on her, but 4 years ago, I got a handwritten note from Judge Phillips. It was after when I wrote one of my bar columns. And she didn't know me, and I really didn't know her. But whenever I think of gratitude, I think about that handwritten note, because my mother is the only person that writes me handwritten notes besides the one I got from Judge Phillips. And I know that made her feel good too, because I talked to her about it afterwards. And I was hoping that, quite frankly, I was the only one that she had sent that to that year, but because it was such a wonderful thing that I've written. But I think she does that a lot. And she does it for other people and for herself. But getting to kind of wrap it up, what I really learned from from the talk that I had with my priest, from the funeral, from the Zoom meeting that I was in on, I realized that we're all in this together. And I thought of the young lawyers that are in the mentoring program who have really had a tough go the last 8 years getting out of law school, and the tough job market and what have you. And I thought, they need to hear that same thing, because I was watching lawyers on my Zoom meeting who are far more capable and far more experienced and far more down the road than I am. And they were voicing the same concerns that I had. And I realized that, none of us has the data set to deal with a pandemic. It's just not, we hadn't been through it. So I figured out. I called Greg and I said, we need to put together something to kind of get it started, to let people know that, it's going to pass and it's going to come back, and it may not be COVID-19. It may not be COVID-20. It may be something else. But I think that if the key that I got out of this is that if we go about it proactively, then we've got our best chance for success. So thanks a lot. And let me see how to get out of that. There we go. So that's what I've got.
Pete, thanks. Outstanding. Thanks for your remarks, Pete. Judge Phillips, you got some words of encouragement for us?
Thanks, Greg. First of all, I'm so happy to see so many of you here, and to know that so many others of you are here, not, that I can't see. And, we've definitely missed that interaction that we have. And I hope everybody is well. Hope your families are well. And I wish I could, chat with each of you and, catch up on what's going on in your lives. And, I'm also going to share my screen here for a second. So let's get that. One of the things that that I've been going through, that many of you have been going through, is being a working parent through all of this. And you've got your day job, and you've got your other day job now that you have to even put more time into as a parent. So I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit, and give you an idea of, what we're doing. And like I said, I really wish it could be more interactive and hear what you're doing. But if you want to chat and put something there, I would love to read those, as we go through. This is the schedule that we came up with in collaboration with my children. So I didn't come up with this all on my own. But they, you know, kind of listed out things they wanted to do during the day and how long they wanted to spend on it. And, you know, I was talking to Judge Adams about it, and Judge Adams said, oh, please send it to me. And then I sent it to her, and she said, well, that schedule just makes me want to go back to work. And so we have flexibility in it, but, you know, we kind of have been, you know, taking it day by day and managing it. You know, our world so quickly changed, and we went from, you know, this morning routine of getting the kids ready, getting them out of the house, getting to work, you know, all of that, to something probably that you guys are experiencing, which is more like this, with your children taking classes in their bedroom. They do all kinds of things on the computer now. Probably many of them are much more savvy than we are. This is my oldest daughter, who was, as you can see, giving me the, you know, get out of the room signal. And, you know, I've been trying to, I've been trying to document, you know, what we've been going through by taking more videos than I normally would. And, you know, so it kind of hit me that we're now inundated with all this technology and all of this change, and what do we do with it? It is stressful. It's stressful at home. It can be stressful for work. You know, I have to schedule them so I can schedule my activities. And the way I've been kind of getting through is, as soon as I get the kids, you know, to the point where they can work independently, then I get the computer set up, I go through my motion queue, I return emails, I make phone calls. Most of my staff is also working remotely, so I stay in touch with them. And then, you know, it'll be time for a break for them. It's time for a break for me. And then I go about the day kind of like that. But, you know, I thought, we're doing all these strange things, these new things, these different things that are, you know, like, you know, kind of pushing us outside of our comfort zone. But in that, I've also found that, you know, some of the old things that we've neglected, like just good old fashioned fun, are still out there. And so my kids, who never, ever, ever play in our front yard, probably because it's a, you know, 45-degree angle, have now all of a sudden, you know, found pleasure in things that we didn't really do before, because, you know, we were running to baseball games and dance class and soccer practice and, you know, work meetings and things like that. So, you know, that's kind of the, you know, look for the roses among the thorns, I guess. And, you know, just kind of take that time that you have to do those old fashioned things. Like, I know a lot of people have told me that they have, you know, taken up gardening, reading. You know, I, in fact, have been checking up on some old friends that I normally don't get a chance to call or interact with. I've been, you know, as best I can, reaching out to other people who have ideas about how we go from here, and, you know, what are our next steps, and how do we, you know, how do we move forward? You know, for me, one of the things that I think is kind of exciting about this, and I think maybe I told this to Greg or maybe one of you, but to me, it feels like we're kind of on the frontier of something. And that's always been a really exciting thing to me, because there are not really a whole lot of, you know, frontiers left for us as, you know, citizens, lawyers, parents. And so now we're on this, immediately on this brand new frontier. And so, you know, just look for the good things in this as best you can. And that's, you know, that's kind of how I have been treating a lot of this, is just to, you know, try to find the positive things and use the time that we have to take those things that maybe we've been, you know, neglecting a little bit, and get those things in order.
Very good. Thanks, Judge. Now we're going to turn it back over to Pete, and he's going to tell us a little bit about some things that he and his firm have been doing to facilitate their practice remotely, and the technology that they've been using during this time frame. Pete, go ahead. And Pete, you're going to have to unmute. We can't hear you, so if you'd unmute it. Down in the left-hand corner of the screen. There you go.
I'm trying
You
to
with
get,
us?
PowerPoint, you know, this is, again, I feel like Wayne in the basement. Judge Phillips, I think that was, I really liked some of the things that you said, and I think that it kind of jives with what I was saying in terms of being proactive instead of letting it come to you, and you take control of the situation. And one of the things that we were been fortunate about is that we've used computers for a long time, and we have been able to, because of that, we've had an IT guy we were his first customer 30 years ago. And so when the governor put her order in place, the lawyers in my firm, we've been paperless since 2002, but and we've had a VoIP phone system since 2006. But we were able to, the staff had never worked remotely. Within 3 hours, our IT guy, you know, he had gone over to their houses and had gotten them all hooked up. My secretary, who lives in Rossington, can offer their phone, print out a document at the office. She can make a phone call off of her phone, and it looks like she's on her cell phone. And we'll talk, I mean, on her office phone. And it's not that hard to do. One of the things that when we started this, there's a group that my law firm belongs to called Injury Board, and they put on a really good, it's a 1 hour, and again, we're going to be distributing this, but you can just click on that link. It's a 1 hour, really nuts and bolts of the hardware and software that you're going to use, that they use for working remotely. And I'm going to go through it. I think it's worth it, and we're going to show a little bit of it, but it's I think it's 58 minutes long, and it's really worth watching. So I would bring that to you. So this is what were you doing at my office? We switched to Microsoft 365 kind of right when this happened. And we have one of Microsoft 365, it's a software as a service. So you pay a price per month, a price per year for a seat. And it's not that expensive, I don't think, but one of the things in there is Microsoft Teams, and it's a collaboration project, so that I can, on a particular case, I can deal with, if I have one paralegal and one of the other lawyers working on it, or even a lawyer in another firm that has Microsoft 365, we can collaborate we can work on documents just like you work on a Google Doc, where we're doing it, we're working on it together. We can do a Zoom call, like the same kind of call that we're doing here. There's a chat feature. And what it does is it keeps all that information in one place, and you're not using your email nearly, you're not clogging up your email. We're just on the cusp of using it, but it's great. A lot of lawyers use Slack, and you'll hear that mentioned on the other one. Slack, I don't think does as much in terms of Teams, in terms of document collaboration, but you can have joint phone calls and scheduling and communication in-house. VoIP phone systems, I know probably most of y'all use those now. Ring Central and Vonage are the two kind of big ones, but these are kind of retail products. We have a phone system that our guy that I mentioned earlier used. Well, let's see. I hit go there. And if you're interested, if you have an IT person in your firm and you don't have a VoIP system, I would consider using somebody like Barry Simple Solutions that we use. And one of the reasons is that they manage your wall, and so they manage your system, so they know exactly how your phone's supposed to fit in, versus these retail products like Vonage or Ring Central that you kind of have to do yourself, and they're not as much of a custom fit. For video conferencing, obviously we're on Zoom here. Microsoft Teams, as I mentioned. GoToMeeting, I've heard other complaints too, but it's been a while since I've used GoToMeeting, but I had a lot of drops. I'd be on the meeting for 5 minutes and then you're getting off and getting on. Skype, same way. I haven't used that in a while. WebEx, I have heard is a pretty solid platform that some court reporters are using, and I think that they all, you've seen they all have some security issues, but no more security issues than you have with your own email system that is not all that stable or secure. For transferring files, if you're transferring 100 megabytes of information, you just can't do it over email. We use Dropbox. Another big vendor is Box. They make it really easy to transfer big files. Some of the bigger firms use a share file system that's kind of proprietary. But if you're like the rest of us, small firms, I think that I like Dropbox, but I've heard a lot of good things about Box too. Remote document signing. This is something, I don't know why we didn't do this before. We use DocuSign. All 4 of these they do have pretty much the same features, but it is so easy to get a document for you to sign documents. I had to, when we were going through the process of the PPP, I was able to send tax returns in just with getting stuff from my accountant. It is very easy, and especially if you're dealing with somebody who's either remote or they can't get out of the house, they're injured or they're sick or whatever. It is so easy to use. I'm hoping that we'll start seeing this somehow blended in with the governor's got the temporary order about notary publics. I don't know how that's going to work, but and then last, what I wanted to say was kind of how to work remotely without going crazy. I just read an article because what happened with me, and probably many of y'all, when this first started, I'm used to working from home, and I don't have Judge Phillips' problems of kids running around the house, just a dog. But what I found out was that I had no separation. I would go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, wake up at 2 in the morning, go to the bathroom, go get some orange juice. I start looking at a document that I put down at 7 o'clock. Next thing I know, it's 4:30. I go back to sleep. I wake up, get a little exercise. I start working again. By the end of the day, I felt like I'd been working 19 hours. I just had never gotten away from the office. The office is your bedroom. So what I started, and I'm not a big scheduler either. So what I started doing was scheduling things like to do and not to do. I don't really look at my phone a whole lot. Sometimes I do, but try not to look at my phone or my iPad after 6:30 at night. I try to exercise every day at lunch. I try to get some exercise in the morning, and I try to make these phone calls at the end of the day. And it's my brother has, fortunately, he's on the mend, but he has the virus. He lives in Colorado, and so I start my day calling him, and I end my day calling him. And I found that it really kind of makes me feel like I've gone to the office. And I read the story today about an author, a guy who wrote from his house, but what he would do in the morning was he would get up, take a shower, put on his coat and tie, pack up his briefcase, go in. His wife would have breakfast ready. He would eat his breakfast, kiss his wife goodbye, walk down the hall, and go to work. And it was his way of, having an office. I think exercise is really, really a big deal. And I also think that we need two things. This is a good time to, if you do have spare time, this is a good time to, instead of binge watching, okay, but why not learn something that you need for your job? I'm trying to figure out Excel. I've just never been very good at it. They claim that I got a $1,600 course for $45. I'll report back on that. I don't know if that's really going to be the truth. But the other thing that I'm trying to do is thinking about marketing and thinking and looking, being proactive about where are we going to be. I Googled this morning. I'm not I'm not a will writer, but I Googled this morning, has the coronavirus impacted the need for wills and advance directives? What do you think I got? It is busting at the seams. I think that I've talked to Judge Callaway about, he is expecting a real challenge in bankruptcy court come July or August. I mean, there's going to be a lot of bankruptcies. Paying for them is going to be an issue, but there's going to be a lot of Chapter 11s too. There's going to be a lot of businesses filing. Divorce. It's going to, all this lack of separation is going to create situations that, unfortunately, we're going to see the divorce and other areas. So I think that spending time kind of figuring out where you're going, and also what your where you see your practice heading and how you're going to market that practice, this is a good time to do it. And I would close by saying that if you have a question, that's great. But a lot of you, and I've looked through the list, a lot of you, especially the younger lawyers, are going to know better about software than old guys like me. If you have something that you're doing, a piece of hardware, a piece of software that's helping you get through, or something that you're doing, some kind of life hack that's helping you get through this, please share it with us. Thanks.
Thanks, Pete, for your remarks. One thing that I've thought about from a marketing perspective that we don't do enough of as a firm, and I think many lawyers don't do enough of. Folks, when they're looking for counsel, they're going online. And when they're online, they're going to see your reviews. So if you've had, if you have some time to contact some folks that you've represented recently, check in on them. And there's a program out there that'll actually give you a hyperlink to your Google My Business page where they can automatically leave a review. And I read an article the other day that, don't just ask for a review, give them a template of what prospective clients generally want to know in your request for that review. So tell them, look, folks usually want to know if their lawyer is accessible, if they knew that area of the law, if they worked hard towards a successful resolution of your matter, whatever it was. So in making that request, give them a little template that'll kind of help them out as they prepare that review. So I made a list of about 5 folks that I recently represented, just reached out to them, checked in on them, how are they doing, and asked if they had a moment, if they wouldn't mind writing a review for the services that we provided. And so we'll see. I just did it recently, but I think that's something that you might want to use some time to do. All right, Judge Phillips, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in your courtroom and just generally in the circuit to accommodate and basically keep the docket moving forward.
All right, thanks, Greg. Let me go back to the screen. Okay, can you guys see my PowerPoint again? I think, yeah. Okay. Like we said, don't forget to send your questions or suggestions to us. A couple of things that I've done in my courtroom, and I had done this before the stay-at-home order had been issued. We started making some changes. First of all, we've got a lot of signage about where we want people to sit and where we want people to stand and where we don't want people to sit and stand, because we are trying to comply with the CDC guidelines. Most everybody on the civil side, we're doing everything purely remotely, which is via Zoom. Everybody's in their own location. In the criminal cases, in circuit court, we are doing initial appearances, bond motions, guilty pleas, and the other things that are set out in the Supreme Court order for in person. And we are doing those only with people who are in custody at the Mobile County Metro Jail. At this time, anyone who is in custody of the Department of Corrections is not being transported from whatever institution they're at to the Mobile County Metro Jail. There's just not any movement. And the Metro Jail is not moving people in and out of that facility to come to the courthouse like they normally do. So we do have lawyers in the courtroom. Each of the judges has one assigned docket time. And so it'll be like, mine is Tuesday afternoon, somebody else's maybe Friday morning. And there are courtrooms at the jail that they bring the inmates into, and we conduct remote hearings that way. This is just my courtroom. You can see one of the things that we did is we moved, the two tables. Basically, this back table would normally be where this front table is. So we pushed that back. We put tape where we want everybody to stand, not come past. We made sure that we took the chairs up so that we didn't have people just kind of lounging around, and we've left one chair at each counsel table. Also, you can see the signage is on the tables. The signage is also on the podium and outside of those doors. This will kind of show you how I've marked off the rows. So the front row here is open, but the front row here is taped off. Let me go back. And so alternating rows, I've taped those off so that no one will sit there, so that we can try to enforce that. And I know I'm very strict about enforcing it. I don't know what the other judges are doing, but I think it's protecting everyone's health, and so I take it pretty seriously. And then this is a shot of what I can see from the bench when we do conduct our hearings remotely. This technology and equipment is what each of the district court judges, they have in each of their courtrooms. This is the only other unit we currently have, and it's in circuit court. And right now it's stationed they're mobile. They have wheels on the bottom, and you can move them really anywhere. But this is the only unit we have in circuit court. And the inmates will be seated here. They're doing, the best they can when they bring them to court to distance them. A lot of the inmates have masks on when they come in. All of the corrections officers have masks, gloves. So they're taking precautions. The speaker, for those of you who have not seen this courtroom, this is the Metro Jail courtroom, is right here. And so when the inmates walk up to the speaker, the system that they have will automatically focus on their face. So when I view someone speaking there, their face and body takes up pretty much the whole screen. And as you can see, it's roughly the same size as the equipment that's already in the courtrooms. So I can get a really clear view. I'm pretty sure it's HD. I have never had a problem with any of the connection. This is done through WebEx. And I usually start the proceedings with, can you see me? Can you hear me? Can you see your lawyer? Can you hear your lawyer? Do you understand that you have a right to go through this in person, but we just can't do it in person right now under this order? Yes. Do you consent to doing it this way? Yes. Do you understand at any time that you can interrupt and ask the court if you don't understand, if the connection is bad on your end? And you also have a right to talk to your lawyer at any time during the proceedings, and we will stop the proceedings and allow you to do that. So we have had really good luck doing it that way. Now, Judge Lockett uses my courtroom and uses this equipment when he does his afternoon dockets. My understanding is the other circuit judges are using the Zoom technology, and there is the jail has created a second courtroom in their chapel that the other judges are able to use. So, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's kind of what my courtroom looks like right now. The attorneys do have private and no cost access to speak to the clients over the phone in preparation for their cases. That is being provided by the jail and by the sheriff, so that the cases can still keep going on, even though the attorneys can't come into the facility and talk to the clients in person. They have set up a procedure whereby the inmates can receive the documents, review the documents. They can have them, and when they talk on the phone to their attorneys, they can sign them, return them, and the jail has been very cooperative about that in on all the cases that I've had. I would say on document submission to the judges, it's really important that you know what your judge wants to do, so ask their judicial assistant. Some of the judges I hear want the original. I personally do not want the original. My preference is for it to be e-filed as an exhibit. I will print it and use that copy. I really don't care to have the original. But that's, like I said, that's something you need to check with the individual judge. As I mentioned, the attorneys and the clients can confer, and because that's a right that the criminal defendants have at any time. And so for the judges who are using Zoom, the breakout rooms are available that they can do that. The system that I use and that the district court judges use, because we're in person and we're using the the larger equipment, what we have done is either clear the courtroom and clear both courtrooms and let the attorney and client speak over the video connection, or there is a place that the corrections officers will take the client to speak privately on the phone with the attorney, and then start the hearing back once that is once that communication's been made. But we make that very clear that that right is still in place, and to please, even though we're doing this remotely, to please interrupt and let us know if that needs to happen. I also go through with all of the criminal defendants before any type of guilty plea that they understand that this hearing is being conducted remotely, that they can ask questions, all of that, to just make sure that they're comfortable with it and make sure that they understand why it's happening and that they are not being forced to conduct it this way, that they consent to being conducted that way. I would say as we go forward, we're going to have challenges about courtroom capacity. With social distancing at this point being 6 feet, that leaves very few spots for an audience. And so, as things come back into more in-person hearings, you're going to see, I think, the capacity being limited. I know in my courtroom, that is my plan, to limit who is in and who is out and how many people at one time. So, kind of look for that. In civil cases, I know, and Allison Hurley may have lots more insight on this. In domestic relations, I know they've been doing a lot of virtual hearings, and I know the domestic relations bar has had a Zoom with the domestic relations judges, and they've shared a lot of information that way. So I can't really speak to that, but I know that they are working very hard to make sure that that all works, because there's some really important and very timely issues that need to be addressed there. A comment about e-filing. I think even now it's even more important to file your proposed orders as proposed orders, because I think a lot of judges say that over and over and over again. But now we're in a situation where the judge may not have his staff there or her staff there, or you may be in a situation where the judge is at home and doesn't have the capacity to print out orders, retype orders, sign orders, scan orders, that kind of thing. So if you will just, once again, take that advice to file your proposed orders as proposed orders, then the judge can do that all electronically, and nothing needs to be printed, signed, scanned, any of the things that would have to happen if you don't do it that way. A lot of my civil cases, I have, continued until we can have more of a regular docket, but there are some hearings that have really lent themselves to this format. And I would say those would be the pro-AMI hearings, the settlement hearings, the workers' comp walkthroughs, or maybe the necessity of the hearing, like a temporary restraining order. We had a hearing Friday, and there were 14 participants in the TRO hearing. And I know Richie Prince is on the CLE, and he was one of the participants, as well as some other really, really good lawyers. And at the end of it, it took us, we took a lunch break during the middle of it. It took us most of the day, and they actually got the case resolved, those issues resolved in the case. And, I told them, I said, you guys are the ones that should be given the CLE, because they were super professional and just really great. And I have nothing but good things to say about all the hearings I've had. With that said, Greg did ask me to talk to the other judges and see, what issues they had. And so what I've prepared here for you is something that my dear friend in Jackson County, Alabama, which is about as far from Mobile as you can get and still be in Alabama. He prepared this list for his drug court participants, but I think it's really good for a lot of the things apply to lawyers too, and also apply to your clients if they have a Zoom hearing. So these are, feel free to share. I'm giving all the credit to him. He is a really, really good judge, and if you haven't had the opportunity to practice in front of him, you're really missing out. But I would say the overwhelming sentiment that I received, and this is statewide, is that attorneys really need to take the Zoom hearings seriously. They need to know what the basic, protocol for Zoom is. I've also included a link there that gives you some tips, and share that with your clients. Like I said, I have not had any problems with lawyers or clients, but there are judges who wear their robes to the Zoom hearing. There are judges who expect you to wear a coat and tie, and so you need to be aware of that. I personally don't care if you're not wearing a suit and tie, but like I said, the overwhelming sentiment that I received, the people that felt strongly enough to reach back out to me, said, make it serious. And so these are just some ideas, but again, know your judge, so that you're doing the right thing. At the same time, I also received messages from judges that said, judges are people too. We have the dogs that come in, that we can't help, or the kids that start screaming, they can't help it. And so I don't think any of the judges will hold any of that against you, but we have those same problems. I've had those same problems. So just be familiar with the standing order that Judge Young-Peter entered that is available on the Mobile Bar Association website. Know what the rules are going forward on that, and comply with those. And so I think that's probably most important. Another great tip that Judge Graham shared with me is he really doesn't like when people are Zooming on their phones and they're moving around and walking around. So he gave me this tip. I don't know, I looked for it on the internet. It may be out there, but if you don't have a stand and all you have is your charging block, use your charging block. It keeps your phone stable, and you can talk and conduct a Zoom hearing and not be distracting to the other participants. But like I said, just stay in contact with what's going on and the updates, and reach out to other people if you need that assistance.
All right, thanks, Judge. I appreciate those remarks. Let's move to the chat section here just to see if we've got some questions that have been asked. All right, Martin Pointer. Judges, maybe one for you here. He asked, are there any unique evidentiary issues that have come up specifically when dealing with Zoom hearings and trials?
I have not conducted a trial over Zoom yet. I have some concerns about it, but the standing order addresses submission of documents, photographs, that kind of thing, and it also addresses physical evidence submission, and where the witnesses are supposed to be and that kind of thing. So I think it's going to be one of those things that as we go through the process, we'll learn more about it. But if you look at the standing order, it kind of addresses that. And I don't know, and I don't know anybody. I mean, maybe in domestic relations, they maybe have had some trials. I don't know, but we have not had any trials yet. But I mean, I think that is probably something that is going to happen in the future, and we're going to have to, again, be flexible and keep up with what's going on and adjust as necessary, in my opinion.
Okay. You mentioned that I think you've had some pro-AMI hearings via Zoom. Is that something that that you'll consider in the future, and or is there going to have to be a specific order from the presiding judge to Judge Young-Peter with respect to allowing those things to happen via Zoom?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to look to the Supreme Court for guidance on how we do that. The indication to me that I've picked up on, and this is, again, this is just me. This is not the 13th Judicial Circuit saying this or anything of that nature. But the indication that I've gotten is that there is, I guess, a desire for that to be a tool that judges can use going forward. And, I think the way that the orders are all worded is that it's at the judge's discretion. So you're probably going to be back in a situation where, this judge is okay with it. This judge may not wish to use their discretion that way. So it probably, but as we go forward, I don't have any problems with it under those circumstances. And as long as the rules provide for it, I would be happy to continue accommodating that.
Pete, do you have a sense as to practice areas? I think you mentioned a little bit about bankruptcy, but other practice areas that may see an increase in activity once things begin to become more normal?
Well, nothing more than what I've already said. I mean, I think everything's going to start coming back. Hopefully it comes back in stages so that we don't have a recurrence. But I think that I can't. I don't have anything in particular that I can see. I think that any area that's going to affect people by the virus is going to be a viable area of. That's why I was talking about bankruptcy, divorce, estate planning. I mean, that's estate planning is an area that I think is just going to blow up because people all of a sudden are going to start saying, "Oh wow, I need to do that." I don't want my kids to have to deal with me in the hospital on a ventilator without any direction. So, and I don't know how many people have it and don't. But
I know you've been taking some depositions lately via Zoom. What have you been able to evaluate the witness, let's say, as good or close to being right in front of them? I mean, is there any disadvantage to taking the depositions via Zoom?
Well, there's a lawyer, a really good friend of ours who died last year, and we worked with him on some railroad crossing cases. He worked them all over the country, and he did not like to look at the witness during deposition because there's some literature out there that supports the idea that a witness's body language can throw you off. And we've all walked out of the deposition saying, "Oh man, I nailed him on that." And then when you read through the deposition, your dog cussing the court reporter because he didn't get it down right. And then you realize, I listened to the tape and you didn't ask that. So I don't have enough really. We've done a good many of them, but maybe 8 or 9. So far, so good. And it's really easy to use exhibits. You just have to have your court reporter knowing what you're doing. You can have the witness draw on an exhibit, and then you can make that exhibit 3 can be exhibit 3A. And and you can draw on it. So it's, in that sense, it's a pretty good tool.
Judge Phillips, Alan Alexander's got a question about accommodating court reporters in civil Zoom hearings. So how do you facilitate that in your courtroom? Is the court reporter in your courtroom, or is he or she remotely?
So the way that we have done it in my courtroom is the court reporter is in the courtroom with me. And and I think this is kind of also pursuant to the rules that the court reporter has to be able to see the people who are talking. So our big screen that's over the bench, I plug the computer in to the system, and she is looking at the exact same screen. Like if we were looking at it now, very, very large. And for those of you who have done Zoom with fewer participants than this, there's a yellow box around me as I'm talking right now. And so when everybody's name is there and the box is up there, it's really helpful to her. Part of that though is like the connection has to be good, and people have to be very careful again about not interrupting, because it's even more difficult for the court reporters this way with the interrupting, because if you're in person, you can hear the noise coming from this side, or see the person's lips moving over here. So the court reporters sort of in general have expressed some concerns with it. But like I said, in the hearings we've had, because of the nature of those hearings, and I think because of the participants, Mr. Prince has probably done as many of those with me as anybody besides my prosecutor, Ms. Bucci, and they're both on here. And they've gone really well. And I mean, I haven't had any problems with the court reporter being able to take those down. But the court reporter can be remote also. That's, you know, provided for in the rules, but we do it when we go in on Tuesday afternoons. We set our civil hearings about an hour before our criminal hearings, and, you know, run through those first and then do the criminal docket after that.
Okay. Pete, here's one from one of our mentoring committee members, Allison Hurley. Any tips on managing employees effectively when working remotely?
Well, we have a meeting at 8:15 every Monday morning. It used to be by telephone. And since our staff is all working remotely, we do it by Zoom now, in part to see each other. A friend of mine, this is a pretty good idea. A friend of mine, a lawyer in New Jersey, he had all of his staff and husbands and wives and all the lawyers. It was about 20 people, about 30 people total. They ordered out from a list of restaurants in near where he lives, and they had a Zoom, and the firm paid for it, and they had a Zoom dinner. And they all had their own food, and they had their own alcohol or whatever they wanted to drink. And he said it was really good. And part of it too is because we understand, you know, my youngest partner in our firm, Troy Schwant, he's got 5 boys, 13 and under. The guy needs a break now and again. And our staff is the same way. They've had a couple of, my paralegal's daughters has had a running sinusitis issue. So we try to, we put them on a American Association for Justice had a seminar for paralegals about problems, and it was $50 a piece, but we wanted to feel empowered, so we do that. I think anything that kind of lets them know that they're part of the team.
Very good, very good. Well, folks, it's about, it is noon, and so that's going to bring it to an end, and Ann's going to make a couple of announcements before we officially close. But look, we had 100 people sign up for this CLE, and that's outstanding. We didn't anticipate that positive of a response. We're thankful that you attended with us. We wish we could see you live and in person, but that day will come soon. I do want to encourage you, if you haven't yet paid your bar dues, to go ahead and get those in. That's how this is possible, by paying our bar dues and being a member of this bar association. You know, when we got the list of who all was attending, I was telling Judge Phillips and Pete earlier, you know, it's nice to see so many familiar names on this list, and we're all one big family, and we can keep that family strong by supporting the organization that keeps us all together, and that is the Mobile Bar Association. So please do reach out to them, pay your dues, watch the calendar and your emails for upcoming CLE events through the Bar CLE committee, and then also through the mentoring committee, because we plan to try to have as active a calendar this year as possible, all things considered. But I'll go ahead and finish my remarks now and turn it over to Ann for some closing comments. Ann?
Yes, thanks, Greg, for all of that. I appreciate all of your support. One thing is, on a couple of you, in order to get your CLE credit, I need you, and there's a couple of you, I just see your phone number. So if you are joining us via your phone, if you will send myself or Tammy an email today so that we can make sure you get that 1 hour of CLE credit. Also, just to FYI, the Supreme Court did meet yesterday at 10 o'clock. I'm waiting on an order to come from them. I've gotten a text from Philip McCallum from the State Bar that the order has not been received yet, But as soon as we get that, we will definitely be putting that on our website and getting that out to you via email. Also, to follow up with what Greg said, this month we are doing some Zoom CLEs. Greg will have his on May the 21st, Coffee with the Court. Then we sent out this morning, we will be doing with the ASB's small and solo practice 3 2-hour Zooms. Those are on May 6th, May 13th, May 20th. And that email that I sent you today was the link to be able to register for those. So be sure to do that. Also, May the 8th, we had planned to have our membership meeting this month. That's Law Day. Law Day is tomorrow. But instead, we're actually going to do a Law Day virtual forum on Friday, May the 8th. We're working through all the logistics right now, but it will be potentially Zoom, and we will host live on our Facebook page also. Also, as we have said over and over and over again, we are in uncharted territory and want to be there for each and every one of you. So we are in the process of putting together a survey to see how Mobile Bar can assist you, not just with CLEs, but help you with your practice. How can we help? How can we work on this together as a group? Because that's what Greg said. We are all in this together. So thank you. This is being recorded today. It will eventually be posted up on the website, so you can view this again in the future. I think that's it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you all so much.